Okay, everybody, welcome back to another episode of Deciphering My Experience. My name is Eric, and I have a very special guest in-house today. Her name is Akvile Sava, and she is just a very talented person that I found on her YouTube channel, which I highly recommend everybody goes and checks out. It's Akvile Sava, which you can see written behind me. It's Akvilesava. I think I got that correctly. There's no H,
You got it
correct?
correct. Yeah.
Excellent. For a second, I'm like, wait a minute, is there a silent H that I forgot? My
It's all
Lithuanian is
good.
terrible. But this is Akvile, and she has herself been working with other what we would call SSP veterans, or other 4D veterans is another term that's been going through the internet as of late. And she has, I guess you would say, a different experience, much like myself, from the average person. So welcome, Akvile. And if you can just introduce yourself, and we'll start from there.
All right. Well, it's an honor being on your show, Eric. So yeah, I guess like to begin with, I'm just a kid who was sort of like born with what people call like that other side, or like having third eye open, or whatever you want to put a label on. Sort of like being able to see not just the energies, but more beings that normal people like kind of like can't or are blocked from. And at the same time, just being a baby, accidentally sort of being able to recall the past lives, getting out of body. And of course, like when I was a kid, I didn't understand that. But as years like went on, and I found like, oh, that's out of body. That's like I sort of like started putting like understanding and labels of what it is and what I am. I
Mhm.
found like no, like sort of like stop putting like thinking like I'm crazy or I'm the only one weirdo who has that. But finally being able to find a lot of people who are going through so much, and kind of like the whole goal is like I've been thought like I'm crazy, you know, like people like putting labels on me and all this stuff, but I just sort of want like, hey, I know who I am, and I want to do that for others, like sort of be tolerant, listen to their experience, and do whatever I can to sort of support them on their journey. So that's pretty much it, I guess.
That's amazing, actually, Akvile. I didn't know that aspect, because in my line of questions here, I was going to ask you, um, because it's so common with other people's experiences that there's usually a moment in life where they change to have a confidence of a belief. But from what you're expressing, you've had this connection and confidence your whole life, technically.
Sort of. It's
Okay.
like, you know, like from birth, I've had a sort of like that sight, and sort of like, oh, like I'm experiencing a lot. But at the same time, for me, it was traumatic because there was no one in my surroundings to tell me, like, hey, it's actually not a nightmare. It's not night terrors. You're actually being abused, or you're recalling past lives. Because, like, literally, like, I'd wake up crying and sort of traumatized, and like my parents would have to calm me down. But like, even them, like, they didn't understand me. And let's say if I see stuff, like, let's say I look through the window and I see like stuff like flying, like let's say like angelic beings or whatever. I'm like, hey mom, look. And she's like, no, there's no one there. Like, like so like I'm like, okay, like it's weird. But
Okay.
like at the time I sort of found a few people who helped me to sort of develop like, hey, you're not crazy, you're just different, and here's why. So yeah.
Could you pinpoint a time period where you said that you started to look outwardly for assistance on the confusion?
So we're like in 2011, 2012. I
Okay.
was about like 13, 14, 15,
Okay.
somewhere there.
Okay.
And yeah.
Yeah, I'm just curious as to, I'm trying to pay attention to everybody's experiences so that we can hopefully correlate something. And that's it's a bit I would almost say early on in life compared to other folks' experiences.
Yeah,
Very interesting.
I guess.
um so now the different experiences, um could you give some testimony as to the specifics on that you're going through? I know you said that you'd see something out the window. I know from your other testimonies that I've seen on your YouTube channel, you talk about lots of times that when people go to sleep, that they go out of body. They have out of body
Yeah.
experiences. Were you dealing with that your entire life?
Sort of. Like when I was a kid, I was like I would be sort of like naturally without trying like getting out of body or actual projecting and all this stuff. But then there was a time where I sort of like got blocked, like the family stuff, the society and everything else. And now sort of like, okay, like I'm different. I have to shut it off. I see too much and I can't be myself. So
Mhm.
sort of like I started putting myself in the box where I shut off my visuals and try to be like everyone else. But eventually it's like a ticking time bomb, you know, like sort of like I'm just trying to block it and it's not working actually. Like, so like it's just becoming more of a thing. And
Mhm.
eventually it just like took off, like way more than usual. I think like the biggest thing was like, I think like around 2012, I was like at my cottage house, like visiting my grandparents, and it's kind of like like in Ignalina, it's like little village, like the city is like Ignalina where my like grandparents live, but little village close there.
Mhm.
Like it's like you can't see the lights, drones are not still a thing. It's like like pitch black at night, like fog and all the stuff. And I go outside, it's kind of like cold now, like in it, like going like outside at sort of like closer to night and stuff.
Mhm.
And in the sky, it's kind of like, okay, it's kind of like, I'm seeing like sort of a light. And I look down and literally like kind of like 25 meters, like slow light, like of the radius, like 25 meters. And there's like 5 of these lights going all over the ground, like kind of like scanning and like going to different places and coming together. And it's just like the view for 30 minutes. Like normal
Wow.
plane or a drone wouldn't do that. In a freaking rural village that like where like no lights, no one's there, it's freaking quiet. I'm like, what the hell? So like after that, like after like watching, like I went to bed and I got out of body. I ended up being in a spaceship, and like there's a person saying like, "Hi, Akvile, we've been waiting for you. I'm glad you saw us." I'm like, fuck, So like I ended up like talking and finally finding some friends, and from then on, like I had like Rich 150X, like Rich West. He was sort of like helping me to learn that sort of be in control of my abilities, because like I didn't knew what I was doing. It just sort of like I close my eyes at night and I end up somewhere else when I open my eyes,
Mhm.
So like he was sort of like guiding me on what's going on, what to do, and like I learned to communicate and learned to go by will and all the other things. But yeah, like there's a lot of things actually.
Excellent. Yeah. And I'm glad that you found Rich. And that, now that you brought that up, I'll suggest that folks check out richwest.net, because he's a fountain of information on folks that have confusion in their head. And he will definitely help you apply some formatted logic to your life, I would suggest. So richwest.net, for folks out there that have some confusion. It worked for Akvile. Worked really well, I would imagine. Some of the stuff that I see you doing on your YouTube channel, I find rather profound. I am, I guess, I don't know, maybe more of a practical and pragmatic person typically, but I can't be closed-minded when I see things working. It really, that's what it boils down to. I'm hard pressed to criticize somebody who's accomplishing something. So no matter what my confusion is on how they're getting the job done, I still have to look at the jobs getting done, and Akvile gets the job done.
It's the weirdest stuff. I feel
Yeah.
like I know where you're coming from, because let's say doing this sort of work, let's say getting out of body, now that I learned how to do it and being able to do it at will, some people like, like I get out and I share what I'm seeing, I'm share what I'm finding. And so like how people are being messed with, the mind control stuff, the entities, the energy draining, like there's a whole lot of stuff happening that most folks are not talking about, or kind of like are afraid to talk about, or like it's happening, but they don't know it or they're not aware of it. So with all that, like being able to actually, like, let's say like, okay, what happens if I go and try to do something about it? Like either talk to them or maybe have these things stop. And eventually, like, it's kind of like a working theory. It doesn't matter how it's get done, like whether I get out of body or it's energy work or something else happens. But when I see people change right in front of my eyes, it's kind of like, damn, like it's the best part. Like I'm like, it's always kind of like amazing. Like it worked, but like when you see people change, like it's the best.
That's awesome. Yeah, helping people does provide great satisfaction. I always enjoy giving people a hand and that smile on their face and stuff. But geez, I just lost my spot beforehand. It was the it's okay. We were talking about the skills, and oh darn it, I need to write things down more.
It's okay.
Where were we at just before that?
I was like sharing like about getting out of body at will. We mentioned Rich here and there.
Yes, the getting out of body stuff, I think is very interesting, and the skills that you use, because it goes right back to the remote viewing stuff and the Monroe Institute and what the CIA was doing in the Stargate programs. It's similar that they also didn't really care about how or why it was working. They were just looking for the results, and the results were the results, and they could get them. And Penny Bradley is somebody that I talk with in the SSP community. And one of the things that she pointed out to me when you're trying to bring people over to understanding is first discuss the technology. The technology is real. So that can't really be debated. And now the CIA, kindly enough, has released a lot of the documents through the Freedom of Information Act and so on and so forth that we know they were getting the results. They were working in these peculiar directions that they couldn't explain. You can't necessarily explain to the satisfaction of every listener out there, but results are results. So, I mean, people need to respect that Akvile can do what Akvile can do. The CIA was able to do what the CIA was able to do. And the only thing they were attempting to do was take what was real, what was naturally able to be done, and work with it. Akvile just happens to be someone who is naturally able to work with it without requiring CIA hot rodding.
That's a good thing.
Right? Yes. Yeah. If the CIA wants to give you a paint job, I'd pass.
Same. You're like, no, thank you.
But I would be interested in so some of the stuff that you do is very helpful. And I know that, you know, we've been writing back and forth in a way, so to say, but we haven't really gone over a lot of stuff
Really.
with where I'm at and what I'm doing and attempting. And I'm certainly trying to decipher my experience and help other people out in the process. But I don't have all of the answers. So in my deciphering, I connect with folks like Akvile, and I try to just glean as much assistance I can out of their toolkit while I build mine. And hopefully in the process, I can grow. Hopefully Akvile can grow, and hopefully anybody that's listening can also grow and gain understanding from things that are abnormal. That's all. There's, you know, on this planet for eons, there's been what they taught to everyone up front and in the standard schools, and they taught what was known. And then they also had what was mystery schools, which just simply meant they were discussing what was unknown. So tonight we're going to delve into the direction of things that are a little bit, I would say, unknown or less known, and we'll just try it out. And I figured I would start by giving you some background, Akvile, some other folks like yourself I've worked with, and I'm going to tell you what they told me.
All right.
Because I am not trying to play games. I'm not trying to like test you and see, what do you like? What can you know? I'm here to get myself figured out. So I'm going to give you info, and you do with this what you will with what you do. That's all I can really ask of you. So here we go. I was told by other people that they are absolutely not sure who or what I am, that I am kind of an enigma. I am told that I am unbelievably old. Like when people look into my past, like they're shocked at how far back I go. I was told that I was asked by the Anunnaki to infiltrate the Draco, and that I did it extremely well. Whatever the mission that I was charged to do, I did it extremely well. And upon departing the Draco, whatever that I was doing, I more or less let them know, like, haha, gotcha. And departed with like a, screw you guys, I'm going home. And apparently they were enraged by that. Afterward, I apparently forced myself into some other mission in some way. It was peculiar. The way it was presented was that somebody had to come here to Earth to do something, and it was some insanely hard task. And I came charging in and demanded to do it, even though it wasn't issued to me. But because of some actions that happened beforehand, I had some sort of a right to make this demand. And that's what got me here. But apparently, upon arrival in the womb, the Draco knew immediately and have been very happy to give me an exceptional hard time while I'm here. And that would go into from the womb through my lesser fun childhood aspects of the Monroe Institute, remote viewing CIA stuff that was happening in my school, up to and including the MK Ultra type tortures, at which point I was told that I was on the verge of getting broken in a, I guess I'll use the word, in a shocking environment. But in that process, I was sent a messenger from Tiamat, who whispered a message in my ear, which got me, I guess, protected and got me through. And that's, and it apparently also got me like hibernated, that it shut me down, so to say, and stowed me away for safety's sake. And I am, let's see, I'm being told that I'm more or less like a sleeping giant that needs to figure out what I taught myself as a kid, because I have timetables issues. I'll explain that one, what I taught myself as a kid. So that's basically what I've been taught and what I'm deciphering in my experience through the Monroe Institute stuff and what they were doing. I believe that in some capacity, when I was a child, they had taught me to remote view myself in the future, and that they would make me make these contacts. I don't believe that's technically good for the psyche of a child, and I don't think they cared. But that's where I'm at. And I know that you are familiar with these types of problems and could potentially do what you do to look in directions to get info. And I am at your disposal if you have any questions or anything. I don't know what direction to go at this point.
Yeah, it's, for me, like, as I listen, it sounds like no offense, kind of like the usual type of people I deal with. It's weird enough, but like
I got to the right spot.
yeah, like I, like how people, like, let's say, call themselves like starseeds or someone like indigo and all this stuff, and I say like every one of us is that. So when it comes, let's say, to living for freaking long, I sort of believe that we all do. Like each person, each individual here on Earth has lived for billions of years before, tons of different past lives, and like, let's say with you, no doubt, like they're totally like people like you are, let's say, warriors or engineers and whatever you were doing. Let's say let's say with Anunnaki and Dracos, when they get pissed, like they are freaking in control a lot. And like what you've been able to experience with their, like a abusement and like how they got you, like like how do they say, a lot of times, like the mind control, and if they can't attack you straight, they will affect people around you or events, and just like one thing after another, where like being lost or like the life is like really messed up and harsh. There's a lot to it. So like, I don't know, like for you, like what do you want to find about yourself the most? Like your reason being here, or what is it?
I would be very interested in a reason, like a mission statement. I try to be very goal oriented, and I guess in the deciphering, I guess more knowledge into that antiquity. If you could look at my past a bit and maybe give me some insight as to who I am and how I got here. Please.
Yeah. Yeah, we can go there. So let's say, do you remember like any of your passes or what you've been through, or more like what someone was able to tell you about it?
That stuff that I had just read to you was stuff that people told me using their abnormal tools. So I just wanted to forward that to you. I have separate experiences myself that I now attribute to these terrible programs that I didn't know that as a child, but now as doing due diligence as an adult, I am aware of the existence of things that would have been considered abnormal back in the day that are now just known secret projects.
Yeah, I see. And yeah,
I didn't have a fun time in grammar school. I'll put it that way. It was a Catholic school, and I mean, I was getting pulled out of my classroom to go to a library on to be experimented on technically. So I mean, it's not very good.
no, not at all. Now, like, let's say with your parents, like, do you have any womb memories or like anything that happened before coming here?
I was thinking about this the other day, and if my memory does serve me correctly, I think I was all strangled up in the womb with the umbilical cord. I think that was absolutely going on. which, I guess goes back to the story. And, did that happen naturally, or did a Draco wrap it around my neck? I mean, I'll never know. I don't have a videotape from inside there,
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
this is, I'm open to the idea that things can be different than what we experience at face value.
Totally. Totally. Now, and let's say as you go right now in life, what's your main focus?
Getting the truth out there and helping people get their truth out there.
Yeah. Okay. Now, like as you live, let's say, with your whole life here on Earth, have you seen any paranormal stuff, or like let's say any Dracos, reptilians, etc.?
I had somebody, I did a seminar up here in Alaska, and I had a lovely woman give me an amazing book, and she said she was not from this planet. She looked like a human to me technically, but people also say that happens too. So again, I can only tell people what's going on in my experience. I don't know that I've ever seen anything that looked off-worldly like an alien. I can't testify to that. I have twice had encounters that I would say are an extremely high probability that it was some sort of UFO type thing. It is a UFO. I mean, I don't know what the heck it was, so it was unidentified. But it's not like it had laser beams or anything shooting out of it or flashing.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense.
But I had a lot of what I would say are extremely peculiar dreams as a child, which I'm trying to work out because I am open to the idea that they're more than just dreams. I'm learning how the child's mind works when traumatized, and how we compartmentalize information, and how we frame it for our comfort. I throw a term out now where I say reframing a memory often. So imagine like you have a photograph and you go to hang it on the wall, but you place it in a matted frame so that it sits on the wall. And after 30 years, you'll be looking at that picture and you'll remember that picture, but all of a sudden you'll take it down and pull the picture out of that matted frame and you'll see the rest of that picture. And you go, oh yeah, now there was more to that. And that's all it is. So I'm just reframing memories is all I'm doing. Is I have a recollection of a snapshot in time that I took as a kid. And I'm learning that if I take the matting and the framework off as an adult, there's more to the picture that I can handle now.
Yeah. Sounds about right. So let's say if you want me to look into your past and all the stuff, is there any particular stuff I should focus on?
Yeah. I'm really curious as to what was going on in the library in my grammar school. If you could straight up, I mean, you have a vision, and part of it scares the crap out of me, to be honest. But I'd really like to know what they were doing in that library, because I only have bits and pieces, and I'm getting more and more. But some expedience would be greatly appreciated.
Yeah. Okay, so you might have seen my videos, but basically the way I work, since I get out of body as well and all the stuff, I'm just gonna close my eyes, relax, and then connect to you, and whatever I'm gonna see, I'm gonna tell you all about it. And once I'm done, I guess we can discuss and all.
Okay.
All right. Okay. So let's say, just from a little glimpse that I got, what I'm seeing is like, let's say when they bring you in the library, uh, there's a few people who sit you down and make it look like, hey, you're just gonna read the book, you're just gonna study. But what happens is like they have technology to sort of like pull you out of body, or kind of like the consciousness goes out. Like, so the body like is kind of like in the fallen asleep state, looking like you're studying or reading, but actually you're pushed out of body, like forced out, and you end up in this facility where now your sort of like consciousness is put in one of the organic bodies, and now you're being sort of like tied up to a chair. They're able to use their technology to access your akashic records, which means they see all of your past lives, all of your memories, everything you have ever experienced. And by that, they're like trying to access what you've been through, what is your mission, like literally like where it is the Dracos or someone connected to them. They're looking to like, like your past and why are you here, your experiences, your abilities. And at the same time, they have like those kind of like, how to say it, like hacking it or like sort of programming it, where they suppress some of the lifetimes that you wouldn't be able to recall it, or let's say being able to communicate with people or those that you have met in the past, kind of like being able to speak through your dreams or like telepathic kind of stuff, kind of like blocking off that. So kind of like you wouldn't get the communication and much of the back and forth like communication, so that you would get intelligence now. So kind of like blocking it off and like leaving you kind of like stranded with no knowledge, sort of like pulling you back again, but like now kind of like in this zombie state where you don't remember what happened, and you just sort of like you just wake up and like, okay, just whatever. But it's like just like one of those glimpses, kind of like so.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
No, that's awesome. I've felt that way before, to be honest. So I mean, you're not speaking Greek to me.
That's good.
Yeah. Interesting. Body swap, Akashic read, and mental blocks. Yeah, that's quite helpful actually, because I would say I often feel blocked, and I think the other folks that I was dealing with, they were using the term like I had been like disconnected in a way. So I guess it's similar, blocked, disconnected, and the body swap thing is interesting to me because and I'm sure you can wrap your head around this, Akvile, but I'm gonna go in layman's terms for other folks on this, so I'm gonna slow roll it out. It would be like at night, and goes back to Itzhak Bentov and Stalking the Wild Pendulum and expanded consciousness. We all do this too. Again, this is what Akvile said. We all do this. It's just some of us are perceiving it more than others. So at night, my consciousness goes somewhere else, just like you're saying what they were doing in the library is that they're aware of it. They're doing it, and they were forcing this upon children, unfortunately. But at night, I can feel that. Like I go to different places, and I can honestly say I feel like I'm occupying someone else. Like it doesn't feel so much as a dream as it is the occupancy of like someone else's skull, so to say, like you're in someone's head, because there's different variations on this. There are times where you feel to be completely the pilot of the vessel you got dropped in. There's other times where you feel like you're a member of a command staff in a control room in there, like as if a lot of people are participating in the decisions being made by that vessel that everyone got dropped in. And I sometimes think of that almost like now we have this blockchain technology, right? And it makes me wonder if consciousness doesn't do that in some capacity to protect its information stream that we, in this whole singularity of co-creation and consciousness, that technically maybe you and I are even just this blockchain of info that's spread out through, different hard drives / humans, so to say, so that if any one drops, it doesn't destroy all of the info. And it makes me wonder sometimes at night if we aren't just kind of reshuffling, like I get to rest here, so to say, but then I have to go to task over somewhere else and be somebody else's backup for the moment, I think life has the possibility to get a lot more complex as the seconds click away.
It sure does. And hey, like, I'm really glad you're able to put it in words and explain like that, because like, I guess like from my own perspective, like English is my second language. So I can't speak fluently or explain things the way I would like to. And at the same time, let's say with all these experiences, I'm usually just telling what I'm seeing. Like I'm not like, okay, here's what I saw and I'm gonna explain everything to you. I'm like, no, like this is what I saw. And I just like explain like the view, and then people sort of like have to decipher themselves. Or let's say if I work with French, he is able to translate what I'm saying. So like I'm
Mm-hmm.
glad you're able to put it in words and like, hey, that's what the Akvile said, and here's my translated version, kind of like.
Yeah, because it's like I get everything that you're saying, and don't get me wrong, I don't want to discount your delivery. It's perfect. It's just that I have to make it click in my head. That's all.
Yeah, yeah,
And
it's all good.
I think it's one of the most challenging things for all of these new concepts is that there's no vocabulary for it in any language. It's completely new. I mean, so you know, what's technically the Lithuanian way to say secret space program?
Slapta kosmoso organizacija. This is like, probably one of those ways, but still.
Yeah, but you know what I'm saying? So like now here we go. Like, you know, we're on different sides of the planet. We have different vocabularies. It's still a new concept, and we don't even know how to put words together on it. I'm very blessed that you speak English, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, broken, but still somewhat
Oh,
understandable.
fantastic. Every foreigner speaks English better than any English person speaks a foreign language. So
I guess.
yep.
Yeah, like I guess like one of the things, like when we watch movies, or like what we look at the world, sometimes I have this belief that, let's say if there's a dark side, they have to tell us what they're doing one way or the other.
Mhm.
And whether they show it through the movie, through the music, through somewhere else, like they sort of like show like subliminal messages or like sort of like soft disclosure, but they leave it there. Hey, we told you about it. Like there's some sort of like, let's say, uh, pictures of 9/11 happening like in movies and other places way before it happened. So it's kind of like the same way we look at The Matrix or The Avatar or some other movies where like plugging into computer or like going to the virtual reality, playing a game where you just tune in and let's say your physical body is right here, but you close your eyes, you tune in, you're in the other world, controlling other avatar, having a different life. And I think that's what we have as well. Sort of like maybe not fully aware of it, but hopefully.
I used to think that the movies and Hollywood was giving out like little teeny hints and breadcrumbs here and there. And now it's like, I think they're just lying through their teeth. They're taking like the absolute truth, covering it up. Like they take our money to work in these zones of secrecy, and then they invest in making movies that sell us the truth back as a lie and then charge us for it.
That's a good way to put it.
It's insane. But this is the way of the world right now, and why we need to I guess open up our eyes, remove the veil, and have more conversations about the things that we don't know and we don't see and are beyond our standard five senses. That's what I look at school as about. Like our regular school teaches you about your five senses, and science basically takes your five senses and learns how to extend them through machinations and creations to just, you know, extend your five senses further. You can look further in the galaxy, you can hear further in the galaxy, but effectively it's still five sense extension.
Yeah.
Now, if you want to get beyond the five senses, we get into the mystery school conversation and the abnormal stuff. And effectively, that actually makes up more of reality than the sciences we discuss. The science is like the minute nothing aspect of it.
I agree. I think like the best example for me is like Nikola Tesla, because he was not just like scientific, but he was able to like, where we put it in words, like getting out of body, astral projecting, or simply like, where does he get his information? Well, you see, like it's not his own. Like literally, he's getting it from somewhere else, and like wakes up, like writes down the blueprints, and I think like everyone else is able to do it. It's just kind of like if you were to get out of body and be fully in control of yourself and like being able to remember it, then like Paul McCartney wrote a song yesterday and it became famous. Like people go and like dream up and then become successful or like get something out of it. I think everyone can learn languages, get some information, get other things. I think it's totally possible.
Speaking of Tesla, I'm a major Tesla fan. I love Tesla. Nikola Tesla, the real Tesla.
Yes.
Elon Musk joker. But Nikola Tesla stated that it was his belief that there are places on the planet that are better for working with energy than others. And, you know, people will discuss his ley lines and this and that and whatever you want to call it. But his simple statement was that there's places that are better for it. He chose a place on Long Island in New York in the US called Wardenclyffe, when he did one of his biggest experiments. I went there, and it is interesting because I do say that there's something going on. Like, you can feel there's like a difference in the area. What are your thoughts on things like that when you hear someone say that energy spots matter?
I believe that, because like, let's say a lot of people I work with and people say like, hey, they went to Costa Rica and the whole life is just like kind of like shamanic place and they feel like very different. Like they go to America or other places, like not necessarily the whole continent, but specific place, and they feel like, yeah, it's like pretty crowded and all. Like, let's say Rich, I mentioned him a lot because like he's my mentor, he's my go-to guy, he's like teaching me everything, let's say, like, or like taught me a lot. And like when I had ability to, let's say, go to California and specifically like LA and like other places, I felt the shift. Like let's say I'm in Lithuania, so I feel like, oh, like, hey, it's pretty open. But I go in other places, and it's kind of like being that empath, like putting like a label again, but like tuning into everyone else and tuning into their emotions, what they're going through, like everyone's frequency and vibrations, and like being overwhelmed by it. It's kind of like why I can't handle the public spaces. Like I get way too much like downloading all their stuff, so I have to like block myself from that or put the wall and all the stuff. But yeah, so that's like one of the things, like, you know, like the whole mindset of people and the population traditions and like just specific places have much more opening. And at the same time, I think like, you know, like more connection, like in the spiritual sense, where there were people from the past who have lived here on Earth, where they have left some technologies or like, let's say, crystals or artifacts underground or wherever it was. Like there are some places really, really open. So, you know, I'm not best at explaining things, but
Oh, no
putting
worries.
it
Yeah,
in words, but yeah.
I wonder if you've seen stuff like that just in your experience, so to say, that, you know, these focal points of energy. I guess to the point that some people, they talk about like, I don't know if the word wormholes, portals, stargates, things like that. I imagine stuff like that would have to exist in some capacity as well. That, you know, things get on big scales. But I just, on a side note, before I forget, that that Wardenclyffe location for Tesla, which is on the North Shore of Long Island, became the Shoreham nuclear power plant. And then effectively it's still, I mean, it's immediately across the street for Brookhaven National Labs, which is a giant Department of Energy facility. And you should pass on to Rich. I know he just recently watched that television series Dark.
Yeah.
And there's more to it than Rich even knows. Rich liked that show, and that's great because there's actually a lot going on. The nuclear power plant, that show, Dark, is the dark version of the Montauk Project. There was the TV show Stranger Things, which was basically Netflix made the Montauk Project into like a Disney version where they were singing, dancing in a mall at the end, which was hilarious. And then they killed the show, basically. I don't know where it went. But then, lo and behold, Netflix made that show Dark in German at first. I mean, listen, like, look at that show. What they made is literally discussing the Montauk Project in German. It was hilarious. I watched that first in German with the subtitles, and I hate subtitles. And I still was so enamored with that. That facility is Shoreham. That's what they're getting at. That's what they're covering in that show. That's the history of the Montauk Project and Shoreham and the time travel there and the Tesla stuff that was covered on Long Island. It's like, it's amazing what's going on in that show.
They sure put a lot of truth in that. Like if you can sort of like read between the lines and say like, hey, it's not what they're like showing. It's like if you see the messages now, like it's totally a thing. Like I did not necessarily knew like about the Montauk, but like damn, like I totally get you. Like now, like recalling it like makes sense.
Yes, it was a wild little thing for them to put so much production into, you know, and then it just takes its storm and goes away real fast.
Yeah.
I was wondering if we could continue with the historical dig in my direction. I'm curious about this the aspect of myself, this prior, the version that was asked to infiltrate Draco.
Yeah.
If you could dig into that a little bit for me, because I do find that intriguing, and I don't know. I guess I'm I'm hopeful that I can find more folks like myself, I guess, from my past. I mean, I guess in my mind's eye, I'm comfortable with the term that it's good to have peers. So I guess the more I
Yeah.
know about myself and my past, I will feel more comfortable with future peers.
Yeah. And at the same time, you know, like you know it yourself, but I'm just gonna put it out there as well. Like what I'm saying is one of the point of views that I'm seeing. Like there are like different variations, different timelines, different things going on, and it's just one of the perspectives. So you sort of like listen to me and so like, yeah, I can agree to somewhat, but like if you don't believe any of it, it's totally fine.
Yeah.
You know, like literally just sort of depicting what's best for you.
You
So
tell me that my other self tells me I have to go jump off a bridge. I'm not going to listen.
yeah. Yeah, good.
Well, here's a good test run for even just for some fun before you even go in that direction. This is a mental experiment that I throw out there, and I'm gonna press to you. Okay.
Okay.
So pretend you're sleeping. It's 2 a.m. You're in bed and you're fast asleep, but now all of a sudden there's a savage pounding on your door. So you go running to the door and you open the door, and you open it up, and it's you outside. To your contentment, you're convinced it's you, and the you outside just simply states, Akvile, I know this looks very weird. I can't explain right now, but you have to come immediately. Do you go?
It's like a 50-50 thing because weirdly enough, I had a similar experience where like, let's say me having the visuals and sometimes the stuff I watch will trigger it. Sometimes like anything else, like for example, sitting here talking with you, and if I tune in to the right frequencies, literally someone else can be standing right in front of me and I will see that. I'll be able to touch it, feel it, smell it, and all this stuff, like experience it like real thing.
Mm-hmm.
So there are times where, like, let's say I will wake up in the middle of the night, I'll have to go to the bathroom, I open my bedroom door, and there's a kid standing up and I'm like, fuck, and I like get really like scared because like it's so real and it's like just like I didn't expect it happening.
Uh-huh.
So like this scenario you're throwing at me like it's very real because like this
Oh,
stuff
geez.
happens to me sometimes.
Oh,
It's
geez.
just like I haven't seen myself that way. Like
Uh-huh.
it didn't happen. But
Okay.
like my reaction would be like trying to connect, like let's say what am I feeling, is this real me or not me, what's up, and you know like sort of like scanning because like a lot of times that part is kind of like it would be like is it someone trying to mess with me, like pretending to be someone else and just like sort of like just like that, so like I
Now I
would sort of
picture
like
you in the doorway, like rolling your eyes and being like, oh, she's got to be kidding me.
yeah, like totally. So,
Yeah.
so yeah, like firstly, like security scan, making sure I'm safe, and if I get a connection, if I feel like yeah, like that's a real deal, I probably would go.
Okay.
So
10
yeah,
4. You say it's so funny how your experiences are so different because I thought I was throwing this wild hypothetical at you, and you're like, no. This sounds like every Tuesday night in my joint.
pretty much.
Oh, that's
Yeah, like
awesome.
I have like some people like let's say call it like crazy imagination, but for me, if you tell me to have an apple in my hand, I have it, I can weight it, I can buy it, I can feel the taste, I can like feel the juiciness and all this stuff. Like for me, it's real as can be. So
Mm-hmm.
like where just imagination or like you know like just creating things right here.
Mm-hmm.
So like these scenarios, sometimes I'm not even trying, but everywhere I go. And at the same time, it's kind of like being able to be in a few realities at the same time, like right here on Earth. And let's say if where Earth is, there's another world and like it's kind of parallel, I can jump between both. Like I can sit here and I'm like at my room, but all of a sudden half of it turns into a forest and there's like birds or whatever, or some weirdos, aliens and all the stuff. You know, like that's a real deal to me.
That makes sense to me a lot because I just feel like you're operating from a privileged position, that it's part of reality, and I'm in a I guess in like a retarded position compared to that my consciousness is expanded on different levels, but I don't have the direct connection. I just have what I guess perceptually is like bleed over, you know, like so I think of it like confusion almost, like I have these different lives or experiences that happen at different levels of expansion, and they're I guess normally in a state of disconnectedness, and you don't, you know, never the two shall meet. But I'm getting some interference patterns or something that allow me to know that there's more to myself, there's more to what's going on around me. And as much as people try to make you prove it or explain it, it's not that easy. You know, just being able to observe something doesn't mean that, you know, I mean, somebody, the first person to see an airplane flying over them, it doesn't mean that they could sit there and tell you how an airplane works and how to tear it apart and all that stuff. They just saw the darn thing.
Yeah,
You know,
pretty much.
but you get that a lot in these the secret space communities and the interviewing and the questioning and stuff like that. It's just because you have a certain experience, it gets very challenging, the interviewers, because they're, you know, just because you saw one thing, you know, I mean, theoretically, if you say you saw a spaceship, they want you to tell you how it flew. You know,
Yeah.
well, I don't understand. If spaceships are real, well, then how do they fly? I don't I have no idea. Like, it almost hit me in the head was all I know. So I ducked. Like, that's what people should be responding to some of these questions. It's just people presume a little bit too much sometimes off of other folks' experiences. But that's why we dig Akvile. We gotta do due diligence.
Yeah.
But yeah, let's see if we can do anything with the past, if you don't mind.
Yeah, so jumping in a time where you were working with Anunnaki, like you were sent by them, as you said, kind of like working with them. Like, as you mentioned in your report, like you were sort of like working with the Anunnaki and sent by them to infiltrate Dracos, sort of see?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So you want to sort of find out more of the story of what's going on?
Yeah, I guess so. Like, I guess I might as well. I mean, almost like you're a mental doctor, so to say. I'm looking for a second opinion, Akvile.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Yeah, like for this, you know, like let's say you listen to one person and you ask them something and they tell you like, oh, you were with Anunnaki and you were with Dracos and all the other things, and you listen to one thing, and now I'm connecting, let's say from what I've heard, I'm connecting like, okay, Anunnaki and all the stuff, I'll find one of those timelines in the world where that happened with a bit more information. So let's say like there's varieties where Anunnaki and all the connection with there, but there's going to be like much more like possibilities and like other lifetimes and all this stuff.
Yeah, I'm just giving you this info to give you a direction. Like, I don't need you to like jump up where she left off or tell me. I mean, I'm just giving you this info and find whatever you can find.
Perfect. All right. Yeah. So like, I guess like, again, like I'm going to close my eyes and tune in and see what happens.
You got it.
Okay. All right. Yeah. So again, I guess just broad strokes of what happened. Like it's funny, like the topics we touched about, because I'm seeing some relations and kind of like originally, or like let's say what I'm seeing like more in the past, like originally you were working, let's say as a time cop. things like Mandela effect and changing timelines and switching like events, like let's say altering what happens and like like we mentioned the dark and all this stuff. You were sort of stopping the interference. If there are any groups wanting to change the timeline and events and sort of make things work for themselves, you were stopping them. Where they call themselves good or bad, like if things have to stay the way it is and no altering. That was your sort of mission.
No messing
And
around.
originally, yeah, no messing around. And with that, like Anunnakis were asking you to help them out and infiltrate Dracos because they, like specific group I'm looking at is working with reptilians, and they have reptilian queen, Anunnaki canine, and they're sort of like creating AI at a time, like to sort of like creating a grid or some sort of technology, and they need kind of like, they're like satellite points or like some points throughout the space, like to create this massive technology and open up kind of like the grid around Earth, but more like all over the place to limit people and creating the soul trap where beings cannot get out. So your plan of infiltration was to sort of like get within the Dracos, take out their technologies, sort of stop the whole system, and then move from point to point to point to sort of destroy their technologies, and so that that whole thing wouldn't happen, so that beings would not be trapped within. And so you do successfully, but you piss off a lot of beings, not just Dracos, but at the same time, some of the groups of, like, let's say, reptilians and Naki Canine and that upcoming AI they were working on that you sort of like took care of as well.
There's a term you're using I'm not familiar with. Are you saying Anunnaki canine?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah. Kind of like, I guess the best explanation is kind of like werewolfy looking beings.
Okay.
Yeah. Because from my knowledge and like people I've been talking with, like Anunnaki canine, kind of like, wolf-like or werewolf-like beings, they're freaking vicious murderers, killers, like no remorse, no nothing. They're like killing machines. Like whilst reptilians are into mind control and they're like, okay, let's not slaughter people because we can use them as assets and resources. Canine is like gonna slaughter everyone and be very dominant and alpha. So reptilians and Anunnaki canine are working a lot, like let's say together. And while reptilians will say like, okay, we're gonna control this area, and if anything happens, you can go and kill them all. It's kind of like that, like those scenarios. But like, there's a lot of variations.
I'm just curious now that we're talking about this and thinking about like your vision, like you were just saying with the apple.
Yes.
When you are looking at this timeline, the time cop guy, working for the, can you see me?
Yeah.
Can you describe that?
Yeah.
Like, do I look like a human? What's going on?
Yeah, few things is more of a shapeshifter because originally you're more like a spirit being. I guess the way I would describe you is you really remind me of a Trucion. It's one of those races that's is kind of like, let's say, imagine a humanoid.
Truthion, you said?
Trucion. It's kind of like Procyon. You know Procyon?
Yes.
Yeah, so kind of like Procyon, but true. Trucyon, I guess. I can't spell.
I got you. That's close enough. Yeah. Phonetical works. Trucion.
Yeah.
10-4, that's fine.
Kind of like that. Yeah. So basically, it's more like an energetic body where imagine yourself as a human, kind of like, but only an outline. So you sort of like, let's say, have legs and arms and head, but no specific look, because it is kind of like seeing the universe or energy swirl within. So like those are like the beings that don't necessarily have face or like specific looks that you can touch, but like the whole being, as like let's say for Trucion, they work like stargates. So literally they can create stargates and teleportations, and they themselves are like a portal. And so like the being I'm seeing you as well is more like an energy.
That's pretty. I never heard of a being like this before. This is pretty cool, technically. Creating stargates. I don't know that I've heard that before of anything, that they just create a stargate.
Yeah, like let's say Trucion is a specific race that is working to help out others in the way of travel. If they're in the world, like they're beings in the world, they have their own civilization, and they don't have technologies to move or like to teleport or all the other stuff. But if their world's getting attacked or something, Trucions are one of the beings that will come and create a place, or like let's say a portal, a stargate or something else for the beings to get away, and then they can destroy it. So they're kind of like just creators of the teleportation and portals and all the other things.
Wow. You're making me have connections to dreams right now.
Really?
Yeah. So like as you're saying this, it's like you're putting words in my head, so to say. It feels like, right? You're describing to me what sounds like an escape artist in a way.
Yeah.
And a lot of my dreams, my expanded consciousness moments, what you call going out of body, I guess you would say, right? When I go out of body at night, lots of times I am assisting people getting out, like straight up. Like, so when you're saying that, right? I don't know how I got there, and I don't know why we have to get to the spot, so to say, but everything is like this savage task to rapidly get maybe a dozen people that are in harm's way to the spot. And it almost seems like maybe from what you're saying, that I'm gating in and gating out. But yes, effectively the environment where I show up would be that of a place that looks like it's in its final moments, for sure. I mean, that's the environment in a lot of my dreams. Is there is it looks like the end of a movie, like that's usually what it looks like. It's like stuff's going south, and there's people that are going to die if they don't get help, and there's usually some last thing that's trying to prevent them from freedom. And that's usually when I show up, and I'm like, this way, come this way. And I lead them through whatever the obstacle course of disaster is, and we get to the spot. And it usually works, and sometimes it doesn't. And that's why sometimes at night it can be very challenging. There's another guy that I had met that his name is Michael, and I call him a 4D veteran, and he does similar stuff at night. And he just calls it his night job, which I always think is funny. Yeah, I was doing some night work last night.
Sounds about right.
Yeah, but that's man, yeah, when you put it that way, it does make a connection that I could see myself in that activity as what you call a Trucion, and creating stargates and stuff. It seems like an intergalactic escape artist.
Pretty much, like as far as I know, there are groups that would pretty much capture them. Let's say, like, sort of like using their technology to trap a being and use the being itself like a portal. So if they can't use their technologies too much, they're gonna capture these beings. And more like Trucion in this nature is more like they're like, let's say they have a radio channel like a cop, and listening in, like tuning in, and like if they catch anyone like that is being attacked, is being like in this very harsh situation, they're willing to help and like literally able to teleport and help people to get out. So that's to my knowledge, like I've met them only a few times in my Ubis, but like that's so far as what I know about them.
Mm-hmm. Now I'm thinking from what you had said before, like with the library and them like checking, so to say, it almost seems like I almost feel like that in the society that we're in nowadays, that like technically I think every kid is going through this system where they kind of assess and do a value check and want to find out what other mystery items the child has in their bag of goodies. So now it turns out, let's just hypothesize that when I was a child, that adults were aware of things like Trucions and other beings and other skill sets. And if they're simply just throwing out a big net to bring all of the kids in and check to see what they got, it would seem to me that a child that is like the way that you're describing with the Trucion, if they were to know this or other things about other children and skill sets, it seems to me not far-fetched to think that they would want to put it to task, and just take advantage. And it's like, in a way, it's like I'm grinding my gears, so to say, like just making this realization that, they probably were doing this stuff. If you're knowing it now and other people are figuring it out now and the documents are being released, that they knew it then. Man, it's some really sinister stuff that's been going on behind closed doors.
It sure is. I feel like, like a lot of races view us as we view some animals, like chickens. Like, let's say if a person who is like eating animals, like oh, chicken for dinner, let's go. They don't think about killing it off or like how bad it is, or like, like they don't have regrets. Like maybe some do, like, oh, poor chicken, but thank you, and like, like whatever. But a lot of people like, chickens or ants, like they don't pay attention, like just whatever, like food. A lot
Mhm.
of beings out there like, oh, humans, food. They don't think like, oh my God, they're so intelligent, they have this and that. Like, no, it's just like the way we step on ants sometimes, they're just doing their thing. And a lot of times, let's say if we as people like have like connections to beings like Trucians, or like we have connections to the past, and if they can find out like, hey, we're looking for that technology, do any of you have connections? And if, let's say, through you they can access that, now you're a valuable resource and they need to use you to access other stuff. So kind of like getting leads from one person or another.
You totally impacted the way that I look at the world due to a recommended television show, which I think is awesome. And it is probably the scariest cartoon and greatest horrible truth you'll ever see coming out of a television was Promise Neverland. Oh my
Yeah.
God. That was like, well, everybody, this is what's really going on in the universe. And this little building that they're in represents the Earth. That's what that show was.
Yeah.
That was
It,
amazing.
it's funny because like just a few days ago I was sort of like, hey, like the second season came out, it would be great to make a little soft disclosure like video about it.
The second season of that came out?
Yeah, like I
I
think
didn't
like
know.
there's 2 episodes out so far, but like they're gonna like every week now we can watch it. Yeah. And I was like, oh, like might get some views and maybe tell the world what's going on and all this stuff. So like
Uh, we
looking
should
at,
we should do
yeah,
like a one of those like mystery science theater viewings where we watch those episodes and go over them.
yeah, I would be up for it. I would be up for it.
That show's intense, and there's a
Yeah.
ton of disclosure in there.
It is. I mean, like you take the first thing. The kids are living like in an orphanage, but like it's all closed off, and like kids are being fed to demons. So that's like one thing. It's already like we're the cattle for someone like greater than us. Kids have like those like ID numbers. So like let's say being chipped and like let's say barcodes and all the stuff like it's already happening. Uh, kids as well as are chipped and being tracked all the time. That's happening, and so on and so forth, like
Yeah,
all over the place.
we covered it. I remember I was flipping around trying to watch stuff, trying to find something, and you had recommended that. And I'm like, let me try it out. I like anime stuff. And I started watching it at first. I'm like, why is Akvile recommending this to people? And then like after a while, I'm like, why is Akvile recommending this to people? She's gonna scare them. She's gonna scare the hell out of people. But yeah, I mean, I Promise Neverland is on Netflix, and I'm glad to hear that the second season of that. And it's a creepy disclosure, but it's the truth, folks.
Yeah.
We're just on a giant farm. And you're right. I think a lot of other people have said that about off-world species, and there's no reason for us to think any differently. I mean, they would just simply look at us like another meal. You know, we look at
Yeah.
cattle that way. We look at so many things that way. Why wouldn't something look at us as delicious? I'd like to think I'm delicious.
Yeah. Getting some score right there.
Oh man, yeah. I want to. You know, at the very least, I want to be a valuable commodity in the cosmos.
At least,
At least I'll have that going for me. But yeah, it was interesting in that show how they even showed it was a specially priced facility. So they even went into the idea of, you know, values of commodities and things like that. And I think we could see that on this planet. It's sad, but rather true that you can almost see how at least society's opinion of somebody is as a commodity in this world. You know, you hear a conversation and somebody meets someone, and one of the first questions they ask is, you know, what do you do for a living? You know, like
pretty
that
much.
matters. You know, like that's how we're supposed to judge someone. But we start that classism thing and the qualifying thing and the commodities market, like almost upon meeting someone. You know, so to think
Yeah.
that it's any different from a different perspective, if not more concentrated, is the farm looks different from the view of the farmer versus the people that he's
Yeah.
tending.
Pretty much.
Oh boy. But I wanted to go back just to there was an aspect in the library that we had mentioned that I forgot before.
Yeah.
And again, because we had just we had discussed that you could see me in the Anunnaki role, and I was just curious now if you could go back to the library. And you had said that they had pulled me from the library. You said that we had gone to a different facility.
Yeah.
And they would do like an Akashic read there. Can you see the other facility?
Yeah.
Okay. Can you talk to me about that facility, I guess? And if you can see me there, like, do I still look like a kid there technically? Because I may not, I gather.
All right. So like, again, I'm going to jump in, scan everything to have perfect clear view, and then I'll be able to tell you like freshly.
Thank you.
All right. Okay. All done.
Got it.
Yeah, I was like trying to do the locating inside out so that like we see everything. Basically, this whole facility. Have you seen Inception?
Yes.
Good, because I didn't. All right, so like they from the trailer, like they use this kind of like a little spinner. If you remember, I don't know how to call it in English, but basically imagine this kind of structure, this little kind of like thing, and now think of more like oval shape, like a disc with a massive needle through, kind of like. And this is kind of like this massive like space station or some sort of like craft. I guess that's the best way I could call it. But like it's pretty massive in a way where throughout the middle, like they're really kind of like creating the vessels. So whether they're organic bodies or synthetic bodies, like literally they have a lot. So for example, like in the Matrix movie, humans are used like batteries, and there's like tons of these pods with people connected. There's literally tons, kind of like tons of pods where they're like sort of like creating the vessel from kind of like the baby like birth until the sort of grown human. But at the same time, adjusted to sort of like kind of like a superhuman. So like it can be the consciousness or like the being can go within the body at any point in time and use it, and it also can have like more abilities, not just sort of limited, but it can like jump fast, have intelligence, and all the other things, sort of like that DNA programming, like making sure that everything's the perfection and sort of like more abilities, kind of like that. But at the same time, like some of them are human, some of them are hybrids, like reptilians and other beings, like literally kind of like the whole experimentation with DNA and like creating different kind of species, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So you're saying that they would drop my consciousness into these various hulks or suits, so to say, or
in one of those. Yeah, because like right now, like I was looking at the facility, and like first of all, like I started looking at the room and all, but like I wanted to make sure like we get the whole picture. So like the whole facility is like, let's say in the middle they have the place where they have tons of bodies and like kind of like vessels available for missions, for whatever. Like if they, let's say, if people like are like falling asleep here on Earth, they can literally subtract the consciousness and put it within the body, and kind of like, let's say, use it as a puppet to go toward do this, and a person will go do things, but like might not recall the nightly experience, and they will come back all drained out and exhausted. So like, there's like kind of like that thing going on, and at the same time, this kind of like a, I don't know, like a circle like shape around that. Now that is the massive facility for accessing the consciousness, or like, let's say, torturing, tormenting, interrogations, and all the other things. And it's kind of like literally, everything's like pretty much like white. It's kind of like more like a, like corridors and like isolating sound so that you can't hear anything, but like just like never ending corridor that like literally goes like really far, tons of doors to each side. And if you open the door, you can see the rooms and all this stuff. So like in one of those rooms now, I'm like accessing where you were. It's kind of like, again, like everything's white. There's this kind of like a dentist chair where you can like lay back and all with arms and everything. And in that, like when the body is laid on the chair, they have a thing that comes out of it, like kind of like, I don't know, like a needle that connects to the spine and sort of like just stabs through, and like sort of like some sort of thing connects and sort of like just holds you in there, if that makes sense. Like, I don't know, like some sort of worm, or like, let's say, just like hooking in like that, so like it can go within and then like spread out, so like now you can't get out or anything. It's kind of like being fully hooked in, can't get out or anything. And with that, they have technologies like, so let's say there's some sort of, I don't know, kind of like a post little thing, but they're like reading things, and like what that does like specifically, I don't know yet. Like I haven't like explored too much, but like I'm just seeing like it's kind of like being able to signal and all the stuff, like programming or other things. I don't know yet.
So this is me getting needled in, and the stuff around me is what you're seeing. Okay, 10-4.
Yeah, like okay. that was the room, and basically your body is kind of like freshly taken, like let's say dried out and everything and ready, but you kind of like have longer hair. Longer than mine, I guess. Like it would be up to like kind of like sleeve here. Okay. At the same time, like a bit like more like brownish blondish a bit, and like the body is like pretty much in good shape, like muscular and everything, and just sitting there. If you have any questions so that I could sort of, let's say, focus and explain about those, I'm up for it. But yeah, let me know.
Yeah, no, that's great, because now this is interesting to me, because of what, like, this is what you're seeing in my past in this program. And in a way, I guess in my life experience, I'm trying to bring it full circle. Is there any way that you can see there? My curiosity is, am I still caught in something like this, right? So if they could do this to me, then if they can grab my consciousness and insert me into some, other sleeve, host body, whatever you want to call it, basically, if somebody can take my consciousness, then what's stopping them from doing it now? And is it possible that because I am connected, or at least they know my frequency, whatever it is, because I was involved back then, I would imagine would make it easier for anyone who's up to bad things today to just basically like go pull a resource off the shelf. Like, oh, we need something that operates on such and such frequency. Well, we have this old resource from back in the day in this file that we found, and we're going to need that. So let's go grab it.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Like, yeah, totally. For me, it's like 100% possible. And I think it's happening specifically to you. I don't know, but like, here's one of the variations. While you're sitting here talking to me, you can imagine one of those places that you've already been in. Like, let's say, like one of your towns or whatever, like favorite place that you really like and admire. And while you're sitting here with me, I think you can visualize that place. Maybe sort of like hey, like there's like specific buildings or like trees that you like, and maybe specific sounds and all. So like at the same time, while you're with me, you can be in another place, like kind of like shifting your consciousness, or you're having like that point of view, at least for a few seconds in that one place. And I think with our consciousness, it is the same thing. Like, let's say while your physical body is here and while the consciousness is within the body, if they take you there, they can literally kind of like split the consciousness. It's not like you lose anything, but now they have another aspect of you. And when they put you back, you're fully in here, but that other part of consciousness can literally be trapped within the body. And how it is used, it might even work like a voodoo doll if they abuse you, if they do something to you, if they literally like trap your memories or anything else. Like they can't really destroy it, but they can sort of like suppress it. Yeah, yeah.
I can totally follow that. And that's my curiosity, because I suspect things like that occurred. I mean, I'm aware of mind fracturing and these programs and the products that they can create, but there's not people running around that are really discussing these things. I just know of potentials. You know, it's not like I got handed a brochure where I can look at what the product line is for 2021 and all the technology that has to offer, you know, but there are folks that work in these realms.
Pretty much.
You know, like, hey, what horrible thing can we do for our benefit? And people will do those things. So I'm just trying to band with good folks like you and Rich that are trying to go the other direction. While you were thinking, just so that you know, I threw this up a couple of times.
Oh, okay. Thanks.
We'll get Rich some kudos for the effort that.
Yeah, I feel like one of the things you might want to focus on, I don't know, like later in life or after a session or even now, is like look at the time when you were in the library. And after that moment, what changed? Do you feel like you're being attacked, like you're being suppressed, like you can't get access to any memories, like you get some interesting dreams, nightmares, like vivid experiences, deja vus, stuff like that? Because like, let's say if you're experiencing that stuff and like getting downloads of information, getting very interesting experiences throughout the night, literally there's another aspect of you running around doing stuff, and you can literally connect to it right there when you sleep.
Yes, and I get all of those things. I love deja vu. I find it to be one of the most fascinating phenomenons that we can experience and discuss, and people don't do it enough. But with that being said, I agree with everything that you just said. My contemporary difficulty with my night job, as Michael puts it, is it's like the same thing that I told you I was tasked to do as what you had called the what was the word that you had used? Trucion. Yeah. That really strikes a chord with me, that idea. But now imagine that same tasking, like popping in somewhere, having to get these people out and get them to the landing zone, whatever you want to call it, to get them out. My nights are pretty much the same, except now I have to do it blind. Something just like I'm getting so grouped up and ganged on. I don't know what to call it, but it's like as if, you know, what everybody's telling me is true. I'm some powerful thing. But the only way to stop that, I mean, I'm powerful apparently, but I'm no more special than anyone else. I can be defeated, right? Anyone can lose a fight. Yeah. So apparently there's just a lot of resources in the night job realm, I'm being told, because they don't like what I'm up to.
Yeah. Now, when you're like talking about being blind, let's say you have experiences where you're feeling stuff, where you're hearing things, but you can't see anything.
Correct. Yeah, I literally now I pop into my dream world and it's just pitch black, right? I still hear everything. I can still, I guess you would say, smell and touch. It's pitch black. I mean, I'm blind as blind can be. And what winds up happening is I'm literally just crawling around, and then stuff comes at me. And now it's like, you know, where are you? You know, you want to fight, we'll do this. But I mean, now I don't do as well as I used to.
Yeah. So can I ask you something about it?
Yeah, absolutely. Fire away.
Yeah. So let's say, like, for me, like, this is like one of the interesting things, because like when I work with people, I try to find like, can I help you somehow? Or like, let's say, can we solve this thing? And one of the things like is finding like what the problem looks like to you. So sometimes when it comes, let's say, to perception and having like full pitch black, let's say, if you have a photo of the old days where you like have the camera roll and you can see the see-through photo, like kind of like that reel, if you can imagine.
Film.
Yeah, imagine like having one of those and then one after another they put on, let's say, and by that what I mean is kind of like you're accessing tons of realities at the same time simultaneously to the point where they're overlapping and overlaying and creating the pitch black. That's like one of the scenarios.
Ooh, interesting.
Like, yeah, because like let's say pitch black does not mean that you don't necessarily see anything. It means that you're seeing so much, it's really creating like pitch blackness, and you're accessing one realm after another, being everywhere at the same time, that it becomes black, like in color, like mixing colors and all this stuff, if that makes sense.
It makes total sense, Akvile. It makes total sense. Yeah. I have oftentimes I have experienced odd things in the here and now in my waking state in times of emergency, peril, times where I was close to dying. My I've this is what happens. My consciousness expands. I don't know what to tell you, to the point that I can see everything, and time
Yeah.
slows down, and everything that's happening to me, it's like you're watching a movie and you literally get to throttle down the speed. And the way I put it is I'm incapable of making a bad decision at that point, because I am now afforded enough time to make any decision needed. I mean, if someone was shooting an arrow at me in that moment, the arrow would be coming across the room so slowly, that I could just walk away from it.
Yeah.
And these are few and far between moments in my life, but no one can take these experiences from me. And that idea of expanded consciousness and increased perspectives is something that means a lot to me. And I can imagine what it would be like to almost like trying to look out of 1,000 cameras at once. You can't focus in a way.
Yeah.
So yeah, I totally follow what you're saying. And in a way, I need to, I don't know, make up my mind as to which perspective I'm going to focus on, so to say. Seems like the way my brain is taking what you're telling me.
Yeah. Well, there's that. There's also like a thing, like let's say with beings who we call like more advanced, and let's say beings like let's say Anunnaki, Anu, Marduk, Enki, and Lil, and all this stuff. We look at them as more advanced, and not necessarily some of them look like, hey, they're good, they're bad, like whatever. We get them labels, but
Mhm.
eventually these beings can literally have tons of bodies, like let's say thousands of aspects, tons of cameras, and they can access all points of views simultaneously. So it's kind of like being a person who's monitoring the whole mall and having tons of cameras, but being able to look at them all and not like focus on one thing and not see the other. So like some beings can literally like have tons of points of views and simultaneously, and it's not pitch black. They see everything. And with the consciousness thing, like let's say you're focused right now on like I'm from this body and I'm accessing tons of lives. But what if you like put like let's say zoom out and you have tons of bodies experiencing everything at the same time?
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of like one of those variations. At the same time, like let's say like focusing back on your body where you have a pitch black. Sometimes there's kind of like let's say a construct, like let's say energetic field that sort of like traps you within. Well, while your physical body or your body might move and do stuff, like energetically you're trapped from the vision, so you kind of like enclosed in space and you can't see anything. Like, is that a thing or not really? Like let's say when you
It is like I'm enclosed in space, so to say, because at that time it's so dark and I'm aware of it. I mean, it's not like I'm about to start sprinting into the pitch black and
yeah
slam into a wall or run into some dude's knife. I mean, it's more, it winds up becoming a very guarded moment. It's like being surrounded, more or less, is what it boils down to. It is pitch black, so I can't see, and I'm most certainly not alone, and I'm being messed with, is what and it's a lot of you get hit in the back and you got to turn around and do your best, and then someone gets you from another direction, and it's it happens. I've had better
yeah
nights.
yeah. Now let's say when you're in that experience, do you have like full control, like you're aware you're clowning around and doing something and you feel
Yeah.
like someone's coming at you, or
Yeah.
like you're like on automatic?
Oh no, I'm aware. It's almost like lots of times, like, I mean, I'm getting rather functional at it technically.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's just it was really frustrating in the beginning, but even, I don't know, maybe I'm supposed to be going through this process because I am getting better at it. I'm getting, I guess, more patient. Um, and I guess it's less startling. I mean, it used to be really frustrating and startling because I didn't know what to do, and I guess I had fears because I didn't know what was going to happen next, and now I guess I'm very acclimated to the fact that I'm not getting out of this damn thing yet. But it doesn't really seem to be getting any worse technically. I guess a lot of my fears were like this is bad, like this is really bad, like what's coming next, what could happen next. And it doesn't seem to be anything but a mediocre trap technically. It's just wasting my time technically,
Yeah.
you know, but it's functioning, damn it.
It is. So let's say like when you're in that experience, do you have like full control? And let's say, what do you do in that situation? Like, are you like focusing on a story and just like moving through and just trying to escape or do something? Or can you actually, let's say, stop everything and try to work on yourself? Like, have you tried those things or not really?
No, I usually just try and do like just hold my ground as best I can.
Yeah.
Is what I've typically been doing is just getting better at lasting longer in that environment. There's in the night work OBE stuff. It to me it is like a video game. Like you die but you go back.
Yeah.
You know, and it's inherent, I guess, that you try not to die because what is it like? What does it even really matter, right? So like if I go out of body and I go to this dark place. What does it really matter if I spend the next 8 hours making it through one fight where I don't die, or if I spend 8 hours dying 10,000 times technically? You know, it's still the same, still the same evening technically. I guess I could just sit down and stop fighting and try to do like a Om Lotus thing in the middle of the room. I don't know. I haven't tried it technically.
Yeah. Well, like one of the things you could try, like I'm interested because like working with people like you, sometimes I already give them tips or try like if they can't do it themselves, they don't have full control, like I would get out of body and see if I can like fix it. And some people like say like, hey, yeah, I did get some changes and stuff. It's like some of the things that you could try, let's say, look at your own body over there as a separate entity. So while your body can act on automatic and defend itself and do what it does, you as a consciousness can pull out and see, let's say, if you're trapped in this kind of like a construct, like where it is energetic or some other construct where it blocks your visuals or other abilities, you can try dismantling it. Where you do it with your creativity and imagination, or literally like get some slight lightsaber or something else. Like it's up to you how you do it. But let's say it's sort of dismantling a possible construct that's trapping you. Or let's say you're the programmer and you say that you like sort of like tell yourself like open clear vision, make it all clear, kind of like giving a command as a programmer and writing like, you're like, okay, now it's a new thing. So it's kind of like trying those things, like can you turn on the visuals, can you start seeing things? And at the same time, you know, like we discussed, having tons of perspectives at the same time. Like what if you're turned into tons of different bodies or like tons of different like lives at the same time? So let's say you're a freaking powerful being who can solve it all and play in all of those at the same time, like simultaneously. So it's up to you if you want to focus on one body and let's say like, hey, in this one, like make it out, like make a clear vision and focus like visuals here only. Or can you actually, let's say, oh, I'm just gonna be creative, and while my body is fighting like right here, I'm gonna play in all those roles and just sort of like, oh, God mode. Now I'm like the winner and I kill all the enemies, and all of a sudden I'm able to see everything. Like, will that work? So like lots of variations actually. I'm just like interested in like what can you do about it?
I like the way your brain works because you're a problem solver, right? There's an obstacle and you towards a workaround, and I like that because it's giving me guidance, right? And so like thinking of the matrix things and stuff like this and different aspects and focusing on which one, right? I'm imagining that, let's say the forces that are working against me, here's the trap, right? They know, let's just say that they know that I'm a savage fighter in that realm, right? But they set up like this little like program trap, like these there's like the train guy in the matrix, there's all these other sub programs, right, that are empowered in their little thing, you know, in the train depot, the train guy rules, right? It's just a weird little thing, right? So maybe it turns out that as a fighter in that realm, that I'm substantial, I'm formidable. But it turns out that they say, but we got a trick. Yes, you're an amazing fighter, but it turns out if you're going to want to fight, then you're going to have to do it in the dark and in the blind. So if you're going to mess with us, you're going to have to do it blind, which totally screws me over. But now, what if I just don't focus on the fighter? is where my brain is going. Is if well, if I just go to a different direction and I don't have to fight, well, then I don't have to do it in the dark, and I can, I guess, do whatever I have to do to get out of there. It's just where my brain is going.
Yeah. Yeah, and I like that because like there's like literally like we're freaking creative and it's all up to us like how we choose to solve it or like do things about it and like where we choose to fight or like look at like let's say what I really like doing sometimes is going at the source or like through the hierarchy. Let's say beings that are attacking you, you can literally focus on them and even ask them a question like who's your leader, where is he, where is she, or like like literally locating the source of everything. And you can teleport there or like appear there where you destroy them, talk to them, solve the problem, whatever. Sometimes all it takes is like you take off the leader and everyone else like, oh, okay, like we're not gonna fight anymore. It's like maybe that even, you know.
Definitely. I am game. And like, there are a couple of things that you've already said about the OBE side that have been functionally before. And I have tried some other things in the past. Again, with that guy, Michael, who goes out of body as well. And I've had some satisfaction, but it is true. I mean, we do have to practice on these things and it does take work. So it's not something that you can try something once and, you know, you don't get immediate satisfaction. I definitely like the ideas that you have, and I'm totally going to try them out because I have faith and hope. I mean, there's always doing nothing accomplishes nothing 100% of the time. And everything else, to me, it's just an effort in better, and better is better. And if it turns out that what you're offering me is better, then so be it. I'll be so grateful. And if it turns out that it doesn't work, I'll try something else. I mean, that's, you know, something's got to be done because I'm aware of what I used to be able to do in that whole out of body environment. Listening to you talk about stuff, I find is a breath of fresh air. Because when you talk about going out of body, I mean, it reminds me a lot of when I was a kid, technically, like all the things that you say are going on and that you can do. Like I really believe that as a child, I knew all of those things too. And I think a lot of kids knew these things. And I think we live in a society that very much tries to convince children of a different reality.
Yeah.
And
I agree.
I think there's folks in the know that are dumbing down society in mass for eons. You know, that we have this special psycho spiritual aspect to us beyond just this, you know, the meat suit that we walk around in. Yeah. I think the meat suit is the less important aspect of what we really are.
Agreed. Like for me, like one of those things that's like fascinating is I view myself like as like one of that, like one drop in the massive ocean. And like I don't know anything, and there's just so much to find out and explore and see and all this stuff. So like it's always exciting. Like what's next? Like big or like small, good or bad and all this stuff. Like I'm always like willing to like go and confront and accept it. And you know, like this is like for me, like that's my thing. Really like it.
Yeah. Well, I'm really glad that we had this time to chat today, Akvile. I don't want to keep you forever. I know it's getting late on your end. You probably have to go to bed at some point and get out of body and go help folks.
Yeah, it's like some people like you know, like really have to try to get out of body, and I worked my share like for 1 year, like every single day, tons of techniques and things and like routines and dailies to do to get out. But I finally reached the point where like not even trying, and every single night saving someone like in some like apocalyptic worlds and like other things like nightly work for sure.
Yep. Well, I'm sure you don't get enough thanks in what you do, but I'm very grateful. I think it's wonderful that you're a young kid with a great head on your shoulders. I mean, we don't see that a lot in the world nowadays. My hat goes off to you. I have the greatest respect that you have good intentions. I mean, what a noble thing nowadays.
Thank you. Really appreciate it. And I like I just like want to say like it's been an honor like being here on your show and like having someone interested in a kid like me. Like it's awesome.
I'm so happy that you were able to find the time for this, and I hope that we can do it again as well. And I'd be interested in talking to Rich too, and more about just that exchange. I'm very interested in how people with these different 20% aspects do make the connections. And
Yeah.
I'll bet you that's a very interesting tale to tell. Was just how you two met. I guess.
I guess, yeah.
But yeah, so maybe we'll save that one for another time. And
All right.
I hope everything goes well for you over there in Lithuania with all the madness going on in the world today. And I'm sure this week will turn out to not be so boring come Friday.
Yeah, I hear you.
Yeah.
A lot of things to look forward to.
Yep. All right, Akvile. Well, thank you very much for coming, folks. Thank you for coming to Deciphering My Experience. I got a website coming up soon enough, so we'll have more fun and games coming soon enough. Have a great day, all.